You can't grow a business without a brand. You have to be absolutely attached to your mission and in it for the long game. These are just some of the few takeaways that I am going to share with you in the following interview with our very first cover feature, incredible 8-figure plus coach, business coach, Kelly Roach. One of her expressions is, "We aren't for dabblers or beginners. We help trailblazers build empires." Well, I know from my audience and from myself, I've never been a dabbler. We've all been beginners, but we definitely are trailblazing and we do want to build empires at our own level. So what is special about Kelly Roach is that she is one of the only female founders in the online space to build her company from 0 to 8 figures with no debt, no investors, and no outside funding. Before founding the Business Advisory, a division of Kelly Roach International, Kelly has led record-breaking teams through economic downturns in her Fortune 500 career. She built her Inc. 5000 recognized online coaching business using her trademarked live launch method, and along the way has supported more than 76 clients in scaling past $1 million in revenue. So we are talking today to the creme de la creme, the top 1%, and it is an absolute joy to be able to share an interview of this caliber with you. And I think you're going to appreciate how special it is to have this mentorship and this wisdom of core foundational business principles that can help you leap over all of the faffing and the fadding and the online space and really lay down the solid foundations to build your empire. So without further ado, we are going to jump into this lovely interview. Welcome to Brand Runway. Well, naturally, I am absolutely super stoked to have a first guest in the Brand Runway studio. This is going to be an epic adventure, Brand Runway. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you the beautiful, she's on our cover, Kelly Roach.
Hello.
So Kelly, I've already said everything that is gracious and beautiful and wonderful about you. So we're going to just drop straight into our topic.
Sounds great.
First of all, we have just hit 2025. I'm going to give a little bit of a context to this. It seems like in the past, 5 to 10 years, that especially the online space for business seems like a permanently moving target. In other words, we have to master and overcome so many new technologies, new skills, new changes in the marketplace. And the minute that we've mastered one, then everything changes again, especially for founder entrepreneurs, startups, small businesses going from or small to medium. What can you say to encourage our probably weary and tired people starting 25 about this very, very real and challenging landscape that we are navigating in?
Absolutely. Well, that is a very accurate description, and that is absolutely what we've been experiencing over the last few years. And I anticipate that we will continue to see that evolve very rapidly in 2025. What I will say is, I tell business owners this all the time. If you build your business based on the trends of the day and the fads and the newest things that everyone says that you must be doing in order to build your business, then you're creating an environment for yourself where you are constantly living and dying by trends and fads that live and die, right? But if you focus obsessively on really honing the foundational and timeless skills of business, sales, marketing, having an exceptional product, developing lifetime value, customer loyalty, all of those things, you will continue to thrive regardless of the changes in the market and the environment. Now, it's a lot harder today than it was a few years ago. There's no doubt about that. It is a much tougher climate. However, for those of us that have been in business for a little bit longer, I will tell you it is nowhere near as tough as it was in 2008 and 2009. So, these cycles are just repeating themselves in history, and the economy runs in cycles and business runs in cycles. So I would say really, really focus on honing your sales and marketing skills, up-level your product delivery, and make sure that you're really dialed in and really focused in on customer delivery and customer retention. I always tell people that that a customer retained is like a customer earned, right? Because so many businesses are losing so many customers out the back end of the business, which is why they have to sell so hard on the front end of the business. So those are just a couple of things that I'm guiding my own clients and my own team members through right now.
So all of the classic precepts of building a sustainable business is just to lean into those more than trying to adapt constantly and then readapt and readapt and readapt.
Absolutely. And there's always going to be nuances where we have to adapt because of the changes in the environment, but the core principles stay the same. Most business owners don't have mastery of the core principles, so they're trying to master all the nuances that really layer on top of that, and it makes it a whole lot harder to succeed. So I think really looking at those foundational skills and what you can do to improve those foundational skills. And the other thing is, like, listen, I always tell people when they're building their teams inside their companies that flexibility is the number one trait that they need to look for in a player that's going to succeed working for a small business. And the same has to be true for us, right? The more that you have a flexible growth mindset and the more that you realize that things are changing and that you're going to have to adapt, and the less kind of emotional toll that you let that take on you, the better you're going to be able to go with the flow of the changes that are happening versus kind of getting caught up in a lot of turmoil around that, which then exacerbates the pain of adaptation even further.
Yeah. So if you're coming in as an entrepreneur and more people are dropping the corporate ladder, starting up private enterprise, you could be forgiven for thinking that the tactical stuff, like trying to master the next social media platform or the trend, is the thing. And I'm listening to you, I'm thinking how much better it would be for people to enlist in business school before they start all of that, as it just so happens you've got one.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I think it's really important too to recognize that, traditional business school of today can't keep up with what's actually happening in real world business. And I created something called the virtual business school specifically for that reason, because you could go spend $200,000 on a business degree, and by the time you go to implement it, everything's completely out of date. It's not working anymore. It's no longer relevant. You need to be learning business from people that are in the trenches, doing it every single day, doing the research, doing the trial and error, doing the testing, so that what you're learning is actually applicable and relevant in today's environment.
Awesome. Golden wisdom. So what do you think about when, for founder and startup entrepreneurs or new small businesses that have maybe been going for a few years, is they tend to think about the whole topic of having a brand or a personal brand or their messaging a little bit down the line. They don't see that to start with. Whereas in my world, that is the very, very first thing that you establish to establish yourself and your identity and your messaging before you put yourself out there. How would you respond to that?
Brand is what people buy. People buy from people, right? So they want to feel like you have a brand that they relate to, that they like, that they trust. And what I always tell people is where you start in business is never where you're going to end. So your product may change, your business name may change, the industry that you're in may change. But if you build a personal brand and people see you as an authority, they know you, they like you, they trust you, you can go anywhere and do anything, right? So it's really, really hard for people that try to build a business without brand, because it's like you're swimming against the tide. I definitely agree with you that building brand is the first and most important thing and needs to be focused on every step of the way.
I'm so happy to hear you say that as well. What tips or philosophies can you bring to help people, founders, create a brand that is going to have some longevity?
Yeah, well, let's look at brand, right? When we think about brand, it's what people think about you or your product or your service, or that the market assumes. It's like what you're known for. It's what you associate with. It's when someone thinks of your company or your business, it's synonymous with what, right? And so, I think that the most important thing when building brand is consistency and frequency. You need to know the values of your business. You need to know the core priorities of what your message is to the market. And you have to be wildly consistent. You have to be frequent in how often you're sharing what you're sharing. There has to be a lot of repetition, right? And this is one of the biggest things business owners struggle with, because they get bored with their own message and they constantly are changing their message and changing, who they serve, how they serve them, what they're talking about, all of those things. And the problem with that is you can't build a trusted brand that way. You have to be known for something, and you can only become known for something, become a category leader, through consistency plus frequency plus excellence over time. And that's the biggest piece of advice that I would give to business owners for building brand in 2025. You have to be the most consistent and the most frequent and have the highest level of excellence in what you're doing. And that's going to come down to things like how you show up on social media, your posting frequency, the quality of your content, utilizing live streaming, being consistent in those pillars of how people are going to move through the know, like, and trust process.
Yes. Don't you think that's one of the most, what's the word? It's not challenging, but the most poignant parts of building a brand, especially in the beginning when you're getting out there in a saturated market, is building this know, like, and trust. Is building the relationships, building the reputation. Is what can you say to people who sometimes feel just completely lost on the internet ocean, lost in the maelstrom of other people in their niche? What's the best way to gather that know, like, and trust reputation?
Yeah, it's exactly what I said. It's consistency and frequency, right? Like, most people, they look at the market and they say the market is so saturated. There's so many people that do what I do. There's so many people that have the same message or the same product, the same service that I have. But it's very rare to come across people that actually have the discipline to stay focused over a period of time. So when you look at it in reality, there might be 1 million people in your market, and there might be 200,000 of them that actually are consistent in what they do. And then there might only be 100,000 of them that actually have a decent product. And you just keep narrowing it and narrowing it and narrowing it down. And I always say it's very, very crowded at the bottom at every market. But the top, where people really perform like a champion and go above and beyond, it's like a barren wasteland. There's very few people at the top. So you have to ask yourself, what would it take for you to go above and beyond what all the people are doing at the bottom of your market to really elevate your authority, elevate your brand stature, elevate the consistency, the frequency, and the excellence that you show up with each day? Not many people are doing that. And, once you make that decision and make that commitment, and if you're willing to follow through on it, you can pretty quickly elevate yourself above a lot of the noise.
I love that so much. It's very crowded at the bottom of the market. Yes, that's the keeper, that one. So I just want to come on to a little expression or a mantra or something that I saw in one of your beautiful posts on Facebook that rung a bell with, and it was, to achieve your next level of success, you've got to create a new identity. And I love that philosophy. It's very close to my own. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I mean, at every level of performance and growth, we have an operating system, right? And that operating system is in many ways dictated by our belief system. And then our belief system is what determines our actions and our attitude and, our performance, which then is what determines the outcomes of our life. And so if you want to up level your identity, AKA you want to up level your results, your performance, your outcomes, you have to start by changing your beliefs. One, about what's possible, but two, about how you need to show up. And I always say, you have to be the person that your dreams require. A lot of people will say, I want this goal, I want that goal, I want this outcome. But then if you look at the way the person is showing up, whether it's in their business, with their team, with their clients, with their market, with their marketing, with their sales, whatever it is, there's no correlation between what they say that they want as an outcome and the way that they're showing up. So you have to ask yourself, how would a person at that next level operate? How would they show up? What are the standards that they would uphold? What are the non-negotiables that they would live by, right? This is what I always ask myself when I'm working to do an up level in my business, in my life, whatever it is. I always ask myself, how would that person show up? How would that person be disciplined? What are the things that that person would make non-negotiables? And if you're really honest with yourself, you're going to find really quickly that you see, okay, this is how I'm showing up today, and this is how I'm going to need to show up if I want to get to that goal. And then it's up to you to decide if you're ready and willing to step into being the person that your dreams require, up-leveling your identity so that you can up-level your outcomes.
Yeah, I have an expression which is absolutely spot on that, which is show up as your highest self and your highest life will meet you there.
Yeah, yeah. I love
So
that.
yes. So that's why that resonated with me so much, because it's something that I've practiced all of my life, and that is the way. Rather than being fixed on goals as such, it's a constant state of becoming the way we become in order for life and results and performance and everything to match who we are. So I'd love to also come on to one of my obviously favorite topics, which is style and image part of branding. So how do you approach the style and image part of your own brand, your own? Is it something that you've worked at? Has it just developed naturally? Do you enjoy that part of your presentation?
Okay, so that's a good question. For me, I love setting a very professional demeanor with the way that I show up. I have always, I came from the Fortune 500 world, so I was used to wearing a suit every single day. And I don't wear a suit every single day anymore. However, when I speak, when I go to team meetings, when I go to client events, when I'm on camera for launch, when I'm presenting, many times I do wear, a suit jacket, and I have every color of the rainbow plus a whole closet with every color you could ever imagine in style of suit jacket. So for me, I love a timeless look. I love a classic timeless look. And many times if you meet me in person or you see me out somewhere, that's how I'll dress at home. I dress very casually, when I'm home with my family and that kind of thing. And that's what I'm comfortable in. And what I think people have to figure out for their own brand is, what is your persona and what is comfortable for you, right? For someone else, maybe their brand is more, classic jeans, tucked in t-shirt, beautiful belt, some accessories, and it's gorgeous, right? So I think it's different for all of us, but I do think that you have to ultimately be comfortable in your own skin, and you have to be comfortable in how you present, and it has to feel good for you. I'm very comfortable in a suit. I'll put on a suit. I'm in it. I got my heels on. I'm like ready to rock. That's comfortable for me. For some people, that would be wildly uncomfortable, right? So I think it is important that it's your own essence, that it's your own brand, that you feel comfortable with the style. And most people work with a stylist when they get to a certain level in their brand, because it is a lot to think about and it is a lot of work to put together. And I've had seasons where I have worked with a stylist. I have seasons where I haven't worked with a stylist. I kind of zip in and out of that. But I would say if it's something that you have a lot of questions about and maybe it's not your strength, that hiring a stylist is a great way to go. I would just make sure you really look at their portfolio and make sure that you're comfortable with that, because that's the struggle that I've had in hiring stylists is, they'll send me stuff and they end up creating a lot of work for me sometimes, because they're sending me stuff that I'm like, that's not the essence of my brand. I don't like that. I wouldn't wear that. And that's why sometimes I do work with one and sometimes I don't, because it is actually a lot of work. A lot of people don't realize that in order to get help, sometimes it's work just to get that additional help, right?
Yes. So why I insist on this question is, of course, since the pandemic, and there was this whole move to down dressing because we were basically living in our active wear for 2.5 years. And then it didn't quite go back to what it was before. It was like, okay, well, I know I can run my business sloppy, or just with no makeup, or just as I am. So I may as well, and everybody else is doing the same. So what the heck? So so my kind of chief rant on that is, well, if you do want a brand, as you've been talking about, Yeah, as you've been talking about, and you want to become your next level self. it's like, it's like
Exactly.
that is so important.
Oh,
Even you
I
said
agree.
it's
Yeah,
like a signature item, like a
it
jacket.
is.
Perfect. A signature,
Yeah.
like it could be a hat, it could be a piece of jewelry. You said so. Just a signature, but at least make a freaking effort
Yes.
to
No,
show that
I
this is.
totally agree. And the other thing, and I say this to my team all the time, like I have a large team. A lot of them are also market facing. They're on camera with clients. They're on camera with the market. I require them to be professional on camera. And, I remind them very often, we sell products $30,000, $80,000 plus. And I say to them, like, why would someone feel comfortable spending that amount of money with you if you show up, you're sloppy, you're not presenting as a professional, that it kind of sets the tone, right, for the entire conversation. So we have those conversations quite a bit. And yeah, I think to your point, if you want there to be an essence to the brand, you have to be intentional about there being an essence to the brand. Right. And if you don't feel comfortable being the person to set that tone or to create that, then you can hire someone to help you to do that.
Yes, totally, totally. Tick. So you have built a substantial multi-figure business. Did you, when you started off, one of the things that you proudly claim is, no investment, no debt. You did it from zero. Did you ever think that you could achieve this scale of beautiful, beautiful vision right then when you started?
Did. And there were a lot of like low moments along the way. Right. And so everyone, I think, has a big dream when they start. Right. And then you get into it and you realize how hard it is. And you realize, all the obstacles and all the challenges and, all the things that you have to kind of go through. And so, yes. And I also had a lot of moments of struggle, of doubt, of, disappointment, right? Along the way. And so I think the two most important things to accomplish really big goals in your business are one, being resilient and realizing that all of those things are like a rite of passage. You're going to go through them because you have to learn how to handle them in order to run a business of significance. They go hand in hand. And two is your relationship with failure. And the people that are able to develop a positive relationship with failure, meaning they have the ability to not assign emotion to something that didn't go the way that they wanted to, but instead extract the information and the lesson from it. There's the person that a failure really like crushes and destroys them. And then there's the person that uses the failure as a stepping stone. And so in order to accomplish, significant growth in your business, you have to be the latter, right? You have to be that person that's able to take the lesson and the information and turn it into a stepping stone. And I think that's one of the most important things that you can learn as an entrepreneur, because ultimately the people that have the highest levels of success in business, they're not necessarily like the smartest from an IQ standpoint or the most talented, or the people that had the most, net worth or biggest connection going into it. They're really people that were able to exemplify resilience and they have a fast recovery rate from failure.
Yeah, tenacity and bouncing back.
Yep.
And I got a few generations on you. So Kelly, when you were introduced to me, one of the things that our mutual friend mentioned was how human and approachable and warm you are, and it is refreshing when you get to the scale of business that you built, that you're still building, to find that you are still so relatable, whether it's to people just coming into your Facebook group, to your much higher ticket clients. Why do you think that is so important in this day and age?
I think it's everything, right? Because I think people want to do business with people, like we talked about earlier, and people want to do business with brands that they feel have care and concern for the people that they're working with. And even data came out in the beginning of this year that said 70% of consumers want to buy from companies where they have a relationship with a specific person in the organization, right? So the human element of doing business is so essential to long-term success. And I think it's even more important now because I think that so many entrepreneurs and business owners are trying to just automate and digitize, and it's chat GPT, and it's, machine learning, and it's, all of these things. And what they're forgetting is that all of those tools are meant to accelerate and build upon the essentials of how a business runs. But ultimately, it's people that are buying from people. And so if you forget the human element of your business, I don't think it's very good business. And I don't think that you probably will last in business. So I think that human centric focus of caring, when you look at being a leader of any kind, you have people that are under your care, essentially. Like, that is what leadership is. You have people that are under your care. And so I think it's thinking through that lens about what that means, about how you interact with the market, how you interact with potential clients, how you interact with your team, how you interact with your clientele, you know?
Yeah, I think that is so true, because when you come into the world of somebody who's achieved a certain level of success, if you can't relate to them, it's too hard to then
Yeah.
get into whatever kind of modalities or teachings that
Yeah.
they have, whereby if you can feel them as a person, and they take you exactly where you are,
Yeah.
then it's so much more possible to think, okay, this is possible for me. It's
Yes.
possible for me.
Yes.
I can feel this person, and actually, she or he is just like me. But
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's exactly it, right? I think that our when we've been given a platform and an opportunity to lead and to use our voices, in a powerful way, our job is to build pathways for the people behind us so that it's easier actually for them to do what we did. Right? Our job is to kind of clear the way for whoever's coming up behind us. And I think just having that spirit and that mindset is just super important. I think the highest reward that you can have in doing business is contribution. And, that's what I try to keep in mind every single day as a leader.
service to give up, to
Yeah.
give value,
Yeah.
to give value and service.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
So you don't have to tell us any secrets. What does 2025 hold for you and Kelly Roach Coaching and the business school?
I
Are there
mean,
any major turns, pivots?
no, I will say, like, we had obviously significant success with my first company called the Business Advisory, and we've been on the Inc. 5000 list multiple times and done a lot of great things. And I spent really from 2021 to 2023 breaking out my other companies and hiring leaders, promoting leaders, building new brands, standing up the infrastructure, all of those things. And, now in 2025, it's really just focusing on execution. Obviously plans will continue to zig and zag based on the changes in the environment and the market that we're in. But, for me, the next 5 years are really execution in place, because now I've spent so much time and energy and money to, build out the infrastructure of what I want the portfolio to look like overall. Now we just need to execute.
Wonderful. So a lot of our audience are women, Kelly. So what would you say to women who are maybe feeling that it's harder in business in general, in the marketplace, to be a multitasker, manage their families, manage their own personal life, grow a vision, grow something beautiful? How do you juggle everything and manage everything so that you stay serene in all levels?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the first thing is put your family first. That's the only place that you're irreplaceable. I tell people that all the time. So I think, really understanding that you can't ever get that time back. And so you always feel like in your business that you should be growing faster, that you should be doing more, that you're not where you need to be. I still feel that every single day, right? But I still try to make decisions every single day to prioritize our family life and our home life first, because I know that ultimately, as I mentioned already, that's the only place that I'm actually irreplaceable. I would say get help in as many places and in as many ways as you possibly can. I still see a lot of women that could afford to get more help and they don't for whatever reason. That might be with cooking, that might be with cleaning, that might be with running errands, that might be with scheduling, whatever it is. So if you want to both manage a family and manage a business, you have to offload and outsource all of the things that are not super high value. So when it comes to family, your time should be spent with your family. I still see women that will take 3 hours cleaning the kitchen, washing the floors, like doing all these things. And my question to you is that task building your relationship with your children? Is that task building your relationship with your spouse? Or are you doing that out of obligation or guilt or habit? I would rather see women take that time and go on a date with their spouse or take their child and spend quality time with their child than doing tasks that aren't really moving their family forward. So getting help with everything you possibly can, knowing what your priorities are, realizing that you're always going to feel behind in the business. It's never going to go away. You're always going to feel like you should be doing more and doing faster. And I always say, the business is like Cookie Monster. It is going to take everything you're willing to give it. So you have to run your own race. You have to be on your own path. You can't be comparing how fast you're going or how big your business is or how big your brand is to other people, because you don't know their home life situation. You don't know the reality of what's behind the scenes. And the grass is always going to be greener right where you water it. Right? So I think it's running your own race and setting your own priorities. And then the final thing on the business side of things, when you have limited time, you're managing a family, you're managing other things, you're trying to have, community life, friendship, a marriage, children, maybe there's dogs, maybe you're caring for sick parents. There's so many other competing priorities. In your business, you have to know what the truly high value tasks are that you and only you can do. And you need to focus your time in on a couple things that are really going to move the needle and get you results instead of 100 things where most of them aren't really going to make any substantial difference in your business.
Yeah, let's just let that one sink into girls, listen.
Yeah.
Get help. Are you still really connected to a deep why, a core purpose, and, a kind of life mission? That's something that drives you and drives your business?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I'm a person of faith, right? So I'm a Christian, and my prayer life and my faith life is a huge part of me, and it's a huge part of how I do business. One of my core beliefs is that every day that we wake up, our mission is not done. And that's what I say to myself every single day. So every day that I wake up, I was gifted another day because my mission's not done. And so a huge why for me in the business is that I feel that I can help make entrepreneurship accessible to more people. I can help make business success accessible to more people. And so that is my life mission and that is my business mission. And those two things are very interconnected for me. And I think that business is too hard to not stay connected to a deeper why. Right? If you're whimsically going through the day and you only like your business on the days where it was easy and you won, you're going to hate your business because that's not very often, right? There's not going to be many days where you finish the day and you're like, everything went well today. I am winning, right? That is so rare. That's like 1%.
And it was such fun.
Yeah, that's
skipped off into the sunset.
And that's maybe 1 out of every 100 days. That's maybe 1% of the time that you feel like that. The other 99% of the time, you have to be driven by something bigger than you. You have to be driven by a why. You have to have a North Star, something that you believe in deeply that is the reason why you're doing this, even on the really hard days. So yes, to answer your question, that's the only reason I'm still in business, right? Is because there's something bigger than me that I'm trying to accomplish and a purpose that I'm trying to serve that is beyond the scope of me and just my own life and my own purposes.
Yeah, I would love to echo that because I do think that entrepreneurship is just the largest possible paradigm for world changing and good. It's through entrepreneurship, especially small entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So
yes.
Kelly, is there anything else that you would love to share about going forward for this year or as you start, or anything else you want to say to our audience?
Well, I would say, playing the long game is the most important thing, especially if you want to have a successful brand. Great brands are built over decades. And a lot of entrepreneurs think in terms of days or weeks or months. And You have to think so much bigger than that. If you want to have a brand that shifts culture, that initiates positive change, that influences and impacts people in a meaningful way, you have to look at what is the journey of your business over decades and not put these like false constructs of time and pressure on yourself that always make you feel like you're failing. So I think one of the most important things to have peace in your business is to play the long game and measure yourself against your ability to progress versus always measuring yourself against the end goal of where you ultimately want to be and then feeling bad about not being there. It's really about incremental progress every single day and continuing to stair step your way forward. I would say, there's seasons, and we're in a winter season right now. 2025 is a winter season. And during a winter season, when things are harder, that's when you build skills. That's where you become more resilient. That's where you learn new things. That's where you really reinforce the foundations and the fundamentals. And I think knowing that that's the season that we're in right now is really important, because what you do in winter is going to dictate how much you win when it comes spring and summer, right? So you want to be able to reap the harvest when the seasons change once again, and making sure you're doing the right things in the winter season to prepare is going to be very important.
Awesome. This has been so full of golden nuggets, inspiring and tangible and practical at the same time. So I want to thank you for taking your time out of your day. We are going to share all of the links and resources and how people can come into your world. All I need to do is just say thank you so much. It's been such an honor to be with you and have you grace the pages of and the cover of the first Brand Runway magazine. So thank you, Kelly.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was my honor.
Lights down. That's a wrap on today's Brand Runway collection. I hope you're filled with inspiration to step into your spotlight and claim your place as the sought after and fully booked up change maker you're meant to be. Remember, your gifts and the value you bring to the world are pure gold. They deserve the perfect showcase. For all the tools and resources we discussed today, including the latest edition of Brand Runway magazine and how to take the next step, your VIP access awaits in the show notes below. This is your moment to shine brilliantly. And until our next showing, this is Jenni Parker Brown reminding you that every day is your runway. Bye-bye.